and welcome back to Backyard Pet Talk with me, Shannon Riley. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Nancy Kay. She is a veterinarian and an award-winning animal welfare advocate author. She is the author of 2 books, Speaking for Spot, and then also her newest book is A Dog Named 647. So she's going to be talking about all of these things. And little funny story, we had kind of a backstory. When I used to live in Napa, I actually used to work with her ex-husband, and so I knew all about her back when she was blogging, when blogging was a brand new thing. So I'm very excited to have an old and new friend back with us today. Welcome, Nancy. Thank you for being here. I'm glad to have you as a guest today.
Thank you for having me. It's delightful.
I'm very excited. Before, because there's going to be some people who have followed you and heard of your books, and maybe like in the 90s and 2000s followed you way back when you first started, but maybe there's some people who have never, this is their first experience knowing about you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background a little bit?
Sure. I'm pretty convinced that I emerged from the womb loving animals. I loved them. I loved horses. I loved them all. And by the time I was about 10 years old, I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I stayed really focused on that. I have been a veterinarian now for over 40 years.
Wow.
And I began writing in 2008 with my first book, Speaking for Spot. And as you alluded to, blogging. And I still blog, only I've switched over to Substack. And I did my residency in small animal internal medicine. I saw a lot of very sick animals with very emotional people, and rightfully so. For a long time now, my soapbox issue has been puppy mills. And I've actually been inside them. I've actually attended a dog auction.
Oh.
And it is just as horrific as we all could imagine it would be. I'm brokenhearted about it and feel as though we could be doing more. And I believe that our generation hasn't done enough. And I was brainstorming, what can we do? Legislation moves very slowly, and it might add an inch or two of cage space, but not much else.
Right.
I was very inspired by Greta Thunberg. Do you know who she is?
Huh?
Climate activist. And I thought, how about if we take this issue to the kids?
Right.
And I chose a middle grade audience for A Dog Named 647 because at that age, they're just becoming aware of the world around them and the social issues that exist in that world. I got into my middle grade mindset, mostly not relating to me as much as relating to my daughter. The protagonist is a 12-year-old girl named Mia. So I really thought about my daughter when she was that age and her friends in order to create dialogue and, remember how they might react to various situations. And the book was released in September, and thus far, knock on wood, it's been wildly successful.
Now, the book is called A Dog Named 647. How did that name come up, or the name for the book?
So I thought it might be an intriguing title, A Dog Named 647. And a lot of people have asked, how did I choose the number 647? The only answer I come up with for that is that if dogs are named in numerical order as they're born, I wanted to emphasize that there have been hundreds of dogs in this puppy mill before this one. And 647 just kind of sounded good. But
it's funny for me because I live in Ventura, and my phone number growing up in Ventura, it's an 805 area code, but Ventura is 647. So my growing up phone number started with 647. My landline that you don't really use that much anymore is 647. So when I saw that too, I was like, that intrigued me because I have a relationship with the number 647,
with that number.
But it had nothing to do with that. It was just showing that it was lots of numbers.
Right.
Lots of dogs.
It really didn't have anything to do with you. Sorry.
I know. But I just thought it was ironic being in Ventura that I was like, that's an interesting number of all the things that you could have picked.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what this book is about. And the age, I think, is, you said about 10 to 14. Okay.
Yes. Although a lot of adults have read the book and have loved it.
There's a lot of kids' books that help adults a lot. I have experienced that myself.
Right. And a lot of adults don't know much about puppy mills. And certainly kids, a lot of kids don't know. I had 12 middle grade beta readers,
Hmm.
meaning I asked them to read the book in advance and give me their feedback. And fewer than half had ever heard of puppy mills before. The plot takes place in Missouri, which has the highest density of puppy mills in the United States. So that's why I placed the story there. And 12-year-old Mia, well, let me backtrack and say this is basically a middle grade adventure story.
Okay.
It's not a puppy mill book.
Right.
But the plot involves a puppy mill. And
Right.
so the reader can't help but learn about puppy mills along the way. Mia is dog crazy and she lives with her single mom. Her dad lives like 3 states away with his new family. And more than anything, Mia wants a dog, but her mom is terrified of them because she was bitten by a dog when she was little.
Hmm.
So Mia's a bit grumpy and self-centered. And on a hike to going to a river, she's scared by something running through a field and she has no idea what it is. Out comes this golden retriever. The golden retriever initially is scared. And as a dog trainer, you're going to love this. Mia knows exactly what to do to slowly entice the dog to come to her. They just look into each other's eyes, and it's clear that this dog needs her as much as Mia needs this dog. And before too long, a man with a rope comes following the tracks of this dog and drags the dog away. The plot then revolves around Mia and her very quirky best friend, Cassie, trying to find this dog again. And in the midst of searching for her, they come across a puppy mill with over 200 dogs. Now, rather than rescuing just one dog, Mia wants to rescue them all.
Hmm.
And that's the plot of the story.
Wow. That is
Of course,
so
I don't give you any.
totally. You got to go in
Yeah.
and read it. So I'm assuming you had to do, well, you already knew because you've been involved with puppy mills and
Yes.
advocacy for a long time. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like this was new research necessarily, but there might have been. What were some things that you did to kind of prepare for this book? Because obviously you wanted to make it as accurate as you could at that level of a reader could handle.
Exactly.
What kind of research did you do, like going to them or researching them? What kind of things did you do so you could help
Yeah.
make this a realistic book?
Therein kind of lies the finesse of the story because when I first set out to write a book about puppy mills, I was going to write nonfiction because that's what I'm used to writing.
Hmm.
And I wrote a few versions of a nonfiction book about puppy mills. I thought, oh my goodness, if I were a middle grader, there's no way I'd want to read this book. It would
Right.
be horrifying.
Hmm.
And the finesse was really introducing the puppy mills in an accurate, based on what I saw, but not over the top fashion that would turn people off, readers off. And so with these beta readers, I questioned them. What did you like about the book? What didn't you like about the book? What parts feel like they're too much? So they really were my advice panel on how far I could go.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, there's dogs that die, not graphically.
Hmm.
It's very clear there are dogs that don't make it.
Hmm.
And the reader is aware of the cold, hard facts of the puppy mill and the puppy mill dog auction,
Hmm.
but without a huge amount of grotesque
Right,
detail.
right.
Yeah,
Because you don't want, terrify them, but you want to
correct.
get them interested enough so that they're passionate about it and can learn more about it if they want, or, at least the awareness. So if they go
Right.
to a pet store or they go somewhere, they can say, Mom, Dad, no, we can't like support this or
Yes,
have some
definitely.
education without traumatizing them. Because I've worked with puppies, obviously, dogs from puppy mills and
Uh,
feedlots, actually from Korea feedlots. I've had some. And sometimes
wow.
the amount of trauma that, because I work with traumatized dogs, that they have experienced, I can't even fathom. And then when I'm trying to look through their eyes so I can help them, I have to take these baby steps. These kids can kind of, without seeing that horror, because some of the things I don't even want to know what some of these dogs see because they give me nightmares.
Yes.
Letting the readers really know how this happens. And it's not
Yeah.
fiction. I mean, your book is fiction because of the story, but the information is factual.
Correct. And at the end of the book, I have basically an appendix of things you can do
Oh,
to
good. That's
advise
what I was
kids.
just going to say. So you
Yes.
probably have ways that, you just like me were avid animal lovers
Yeah.
since birth, probably. I already kind of knew about puppy mills a little bit when I was young, just because of my own exposure, but I probably would have sent me on an advocacy journey if I had read this
Yes.
when I was in that age group.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a common denominator in those puppy mill puppies. Is it fear? Is
A
that
lot of times fear. And because genetically, usually their mom or dad or both had fear too, because if they've been a product of that.
right?
And then the other thing I find is puppies that come from that, because mom was fearful in their little cage too. So then they not only have nature, but nurture, so mom taught them to be
Right.
fearful of things. Other things that happen is inability, they urinate and defecate where they live. So they are hard to crate train and house train. Sometimes coprophagia, so eating their own feces, is extreme because that's all they had to eat, or they ate limited, or they watched mom eating it, in that cage. So that can be a challenge. And depending how old people get the puppy, if they're over 14 to 16 weeks, they've already missed the socializing period. So they have genetic fears. They've been in trauma for their whole early socialization period, and they're hard to bounce back after that. And then they've also had trauma, and all that's traumatic. Those are the three things that I always look at with fearful dogs:
Sure,
is
sure.
what's the genetics, if we can know, sometimes we don't, what socialization, and then was there trauma. And those dogs usually have all three. And so those are harder cases to adapt them to more quote unquote normal dog behavior, so that they aren't
Right.
reactive to other dogs or people, because then the fear shows up in whatever way. It can be reactive towards
Absolutely.
dogs, it could be reactive towards people, it could be afraid of new environments. If trauma doesn't always go, oh, people were mean to me, I don't like people. It can be people were mean to me and I still love people, but I hate other dogs. Trauma doesn't always make sense on
Right.
how it appears. Those puppy mill dogs can be really
Yeah,
challenging.
I
And
think
sometimes they're undernourished too. So there's that.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're from the beginning just bathed in stress hormones
Mm-hmm.
24/7.
And mom was too. So they get
Yes.
neonatal stress. There's some behaviors that are starting to talk about, which I think is fascinating. And I've gone to some conferences about generational stress. We are learning about that more in human psychology.
Yes.
My grandparents, grandparents who have gone through stress and went through the depression or went through all these wars. And so that generational stress, they're actually starting to talk about generational stress within dogs and animals,
Isn't that
which is kind of new. It's
yeah.
always fun when science people start talking about that kind of stuff. We're still looking into it, but at least it's opening our minds to it. And some of those puppy mills are generational puppy mills. It's not just this one dog came. I've had some that are afraid if they clean their house, their cages or their runs, they hose them with them in it. They're not
Yeah.
allowed to leave. So I've had dogs afraid of water, dogs afraid of lots of different bowls, their dog bowls, because of whatever they exposed to. So,
Yeah.
most of those dogs end up needing, some kind of medication to help overcome it because the fear is so severe. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. So they go on Prozac
And
or something.
most of the people had no idea they were purchasing from a puppy mill.
That is 100%. They think that they got them from a pet store, must be good, or
AKC registered. Yeah.
right. They're like, well, it was a breeder and the pictures look so good, and I'm like, well, did you go to the place? Did you see?
Let's tell your listeners, it'll take just a second because
Oh,
it's so simple. How can your listeners avoid a puppy mill purchase? So simple. Never ever purchase a puppy from a pet store
mhm.
because 99% of those puppies come from puppy mills. And never ever purchase a puppy sight unseen, meaning you're not seeing the puppy with your own two eyes up close and personal, and you're not seeing the kennel and meeting the mother of the puppy. I don't care how many videos the breeder sends you, you must go see that puppy in person. And a responsible breeder would never sell a puppy to you without meeting you in person.
100%. I tell people they want to meet you in the Walmart parking lot, run. I mean, and I have people who spend lots of money and they'll
Oh,
say,
yeah.
and oh, it's all these videos and look, they've done these training. And some of those dogs come and then they fly them from across
Yes.
the country and the dogs are terrified. And they're like, well, I spent all this money for training and, this and I'm like, but you never went and saw the kennel. And if you can meet mom and dad, but sometimes you can't meet dad because sometimes dad's just a sperm donor. He's not a
Yeah.
active participant in the kennel. And my other thing is if there's lots of different breeds of dogs. So I've had
Yes.
some people who are like, well, they had pugs and they had huskies and they had golden retrievers. And I'm like,
Mm-mm.
that's also a big red flag when I have people say that.
Sure.
It's super important. And then if people stopped purchasing them, then they would stop producing them. But the problem is as
Yeah.
long as they can make the money, they're going to keep breeding the dogs.
Absolutely. So if
Mhm.
we can create a next generation that diminishes the demand, then the supply should, in theory, dry up.
Exactly. So I know that I think that's so important and teaching all the, kids, but I like to read kids books sometimes too, because I will learn something that maybe is too overwhelming. Because even for adults, you're saying, you've kept the context, not too graphic.
Correct.
But there are some people, adults, who would turn away from a book that was more graphic for their own reason. Like, because they go, I can't
Oh,
read
yeah.
that. My mom won't ever read Where Red Fern Grows or Old Yeller ever again, because she's like, I don't want to cry at the end. If she knew
Yes.
a book was going to have too much graphic, and then you would miss that reader because
Yes.
it would be too far. I think that that's so good. Was there something that specifically inspired you to write this book, or was it just like accumulation of your life experiences that you're like, it's time to do the puppy mill book?
It was really my frustration that we were all knocking our heads against the wall trying to make puppy mills go away, and we're not getting anywhere. There are some cities and towns that have denied the sale of puppies in pet stores. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But we've only made a dent.
Right.
I would really like a head-on collision with these
Right.
puppy mills. It's like, what can we do different? How can we change this up? And so I thought, let's appeal to the kids.
Right. And the other thing that's really so hard about when people can't see them in pet stores. And I'm thinking of a client right now she knows now they were two puppy mill dogs, but when she got them, she was younger and they were just cute. But that's exactly what happens is she walked by a pet store and these little
Oh,
cute puppies,
yeah.
looked at her, and she spent way too much money. And now we're working through all of their issues, and they're sweet dogs, but they are, it was that appeal, that drive.
Absolutely. People
Yeah.
can fall in love with puppy mills, often have their websites of available pups are like high school yearbooks
Uh-huh.
where they have pup after pup after pup, and someone will fall in love with a picture of a face.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be it. They have to have that $5,000 puppy.
Yep.
And the breeder provides materials that support that this is just a fabulous puppy. It's been raised with children and all of this malarkey. And now I've been learning about this more and more. A dog trainer who's actually in Southern California. I wonder if you might know her, Jill Breitner.
I think I've heard her name before. I think I crossed
Yeah.
her. It's been a while, but
He
it sounds
said,
familiar.
check out this website because my client really wants to get a dog here.
Uh-huh.
And it's a rescue, a nonprofit rescue organization. And how interesting that every dog costs $5,000. And how interesting, I'm sorry, I exaggerated. Every dog costs $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
And every dog is either a purebred or one of those designer hybrids.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking there's a pet store that has rescue dogs that I was thinking the same thing. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it was in a local town. I'm not sure if it's still there or not because I haven't heard anybody get it recently because you weren't allowed to sell in here. You weren't allowed to sell pets. I remember when they were like, okay, no more pet stores can't sell puppies anymore. I was wondering, how did this pet store get around it? And they were calling them rescues, but they were all very
And
expensive.
a nonprofit.
Exactly. What happened is some of the dogs, I haven't had dogs come from there for a while, so I don't think the store is open anymore. But some of them came really sick too.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
can think about a pug that it's been years, and this pug might not even be with us anymore, but came and I said, we can't worry about training this puppy until you get this puppy healthy. She was so emaciated. She was riddled with so many parasites. I remember she was so thin. And I was like, her brain can't be functioning properly for all this training until we get her nutrition right. And it
Right.
took them a long time. And I think then I ended up seeing them years later, just came across. She was doing better, I think, then, but it took a long time to get this puppy. So they got this rescue purebred pug for
Right.
lots of money and then ended up spending, I don't even know how much money trying to get her healthy. And it was just so sad.
Pet stores do sometimes run adopt-a-thons in
Mm-hmm.
conjunction with animal shelters. Technically speaking, you might get a puppy at a pet store, but it's through one of these events. Rather
Exactly.
than, yeah.
And the puppy shouldn't be living in a little area that like they would have their mice in, or
Yeah.
their glass cages that have
Yes.
shavings in them. And then those puppies aren't getting well socialized, and they don't get a chance to really learn how to potty train, because if they're in a mall, nobody's going to take them outside every 2 hours to help let them eliminate.
Right. As an
Is
internist, I saw people who were devastated. I think it takes about, on average, 24 minutes for a person to fall in love with a puppy that's in their arms. And they've been so excited about this puppy. They paid a fortune. And then they realize that this little pug can't breathe.
Yeah.
Because the diameter of its windpipe is less than the diameter of a pencil.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of birth defects involved, a lot of infectious diseases involved. Because puppy mill breeders don't do much in the way of genetic screening. You name about any breed, and there are genetic screening tests that should happen before the dog is bred.
Exactly. And I know, and Frenchies now are kind of on the list because so many people were breeding them. And I have seen so many Frenchies now that are so deformed. They don't even look like Frenchies anymore,
They're the
and
number one most popular breed in the United States.
exactly. And something else that's interesting that comes along with all of this inbreeding is something recent. I was at a veterinary behavior conference and we were talking about how pain and digestive issues can also be the reason a dog has behavior problems. If they're not don't have good digestive systems, or if they have joint pain or hip pain, or any kind of, osteoarthritis, anything like that. And one of the things they talked about is we need to stop saying, oh, that's how a bulldog walks, or oh, that's how a Frenchie walks, because we have gotten so trained that some of these deformities that have happened are normal, but they are not normal. And just because that's how bulldogs walk doesn't mean that they're not in pain every single day because their femurs are so rotated, or because their elbows have so much dysplasia. So it's something that I think you're at a seed of things that can blossom to so much more animal welfare that you can talk about when you start learning about puppy mills and those diseases, that whether they're physical or developmental.
Sure. My goal is to turn kids on to other animal welfare issues.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting together a website called Kids United for Animal Welfare, and I just completed the section on how to interpret labels on egg cartons and the differences between how some chickens live versus other chickens. And yes, so for any factory farming, I'm trying to raise awareness about that.
Exactly, because we don't know. And like you said, labels, just like whether it's a puppy mill or egg cartons, they can change the wording. Oh, it's a rescue dog, or it's a free range, but not really free range chicken. Or, they can have different wordings. It's kind of like when you get a chocolate pudding or something and it says chocolate flavored, and you're like, that means there's not really chocolate in there, or dog treats that say they're salmon flavored. And it's like, there's probably no real salmon in that treat. It's the way things are labeled. People don't know how that all works.
And just to help your audience, the legit eggs that you might want to consider for humane reasons are pasture raised. So cage free, free range, there's a whole bunch of labeling that means nothing. Yeah. Pasture raised is what you want to look for. And then you can decide if you want to do the organic thing and all that.
Right. I think that that's so good. Hopefully this will, like you said, get another generation. Because I feel like maybe 20 years ago, puppy mills got really big about, oh, we're going to fight them. There was a lot of advocacy. And then you're right. It's kind of fallen. I haven't noticed as much advocacy as it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago. I don't know, if it's just people have gotten busy and just don't worry about it. If investigative reporting, because it used to be, they had private investigators go in and pretend they were buying puppies, and then they would put their little fake camera on. I think this is a good thing to be bringing back awareness for, because I think it's kind of dropped off a lot for everything.
And the doodle craze has not helped the vast majority of doodle dogs coming from puppy mills, because those businesses are super opportunistic, and they see a fad or a craze and they're going to grab hold of it.
I remember when the doodles first came out, and when I lived in Napa, a person got a doodle from Australia when they were first trying to make it a breed. And I remember thinking, you paid this much for a mixed breed? Like a what? And I didn't understand it. He was amazing. He was such a great dog. I still remember his name was Marley. He was big, chocolate, standard size doodle, lived close to the vet hospital I at. So I saw him all the time. He was in my puppy classes. And I was thinking, is this really going to be a breed? And now the man who created that wished he had never done it, because it created such a disaster. Sometimes I get dogs and I'm like, I don't even think there's poodle in this. They'll bring it to puppy class or into me and they'll say, oh, it's a Labradoodle or Golden Doodle. And I'll be like, it looks like it's a terrier. Like, it doesn't look like there's doodle in this dog at all. People still pay a lot.
Oh, I've learned not to ever argue that. Someone might bring in an Australian Shepherd and say, this is my German Shepherd. I'm like, okay.
That's exactly.
Argue about that. No way.
I don't. I look at them and I go, oh, and I'll say, oh, interesting. You don't have curly hair, or but I don't care, because for me, I'm looking at behavior. Doesn't matter what
Sure.
the breed is, it's just behavior. But people spend a lot of money on those. And like you said, it's a lot of times not good breeders that are doing this in the first place anyway. Well, you did also years ago wrote Speaking for Spot.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about Speaking for Spot.
Sure. After going through a medical scare of my own and avoiding a needless surgery because I know how to be a medical advocate for myself, I came away thinking, how does the average Joe or Josephine manage to ask all the right questions to get these responses and answers? And so I thought, well, I'll write a book to help dog owners. It really morphed into quite the project. It's all about medical advocacy. Many of my clients said that they actually took the lessons they learned from the book to their own doctor's visits. It's a lot about not putting your veterinarian up on a pedestal, which isn't as much of a problem now as it used to be because veterinarians no longer get the benefit of the doubt no matter what. For certain situations, new medication is prescribed, anesthesia, what questions to ask your veterinarian, definitely access to the back of the hospital, all things that are reasonable to expect from your veterinary hospital in terms of communication, that second opinions are always okay. A whole chapter on euthanasia. So it's really a kind of a reference book that one would keep up on the shelf for when issues arise. A lot of specific diseases are addressed, what questions to ask regarding that particular disease. It's a lot about asking the right questions to get the right answers.
For sure. I mean, I see that. I have a lot of people as being a registered vet tech, my friends know and my close clients, sometimes I have friends that are in a vet hospital and I'm getting texts. Okay,
Yes.
PP
Yeah.
is like sick. What should and sometimes depending on the hospital, I have some hospitals that are like, okay, they're going one step at a time. And one of my friends had a lab, he vomited once. And next thing I knew, they were doing x-rays and he was sedated. And I was like, he's a lab and he vomited once and he's eating and he's acting healthy and I was like, and I'm trying to tell her, stop,
Stop.
just stop and don't pay all this. Wait,
Yeah.
give him 24 hours. Or, you get overwhelmed and you have to go to the emergency room and it's like, okay, we're going to do blood work and x-rays and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I mean, I do it step by step as a professional. I'm like, how about we start with whatever, if it's something with bone, how about we start with x-rays? Let's just do one thing at a time. I'm not going to sign the estimate for all those things. Let's just see because we might find it on the first diagnostic and then I don't have to do all the
Or
other things.
your dog might be better by the time you get to the second diagnostic.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Are you familiar with Fresh Air with Terry Gross?
I don't think I've heard
It's
that
a
one.
national public radio show.
Okay.
To me, it's kind of like Oprah on the radio in
Uh-huh.
terms of how revered she is. And so she actually picked up Speaking for Spot, and I was featured on her show with the book,
Oh,
which was
fun.
a highlight far and away of my writing career so far.
Uh-huh. That's amazing. No, I think all of this is such good information for whether these, kids learning or adults too, but puppy mills. But then also you've got both sides of pet owners do get so lost in all of the
Yeah.
possibilities and all the questions and you don't know what to believe and you're going to your veterinarian and you're assuming that I mean sometimes we put them on too high of a pedestal like they're just people and they know the parts that they know and they don't maybe know your dog so and the better the veterinarian listens to you I think is also good if you've got a veterinarian and this is the same thing with human doctors because I personally just recently had a actual boating accident and I had doctors not listening to
Oh,
me and I
wow.
said, my brain is not normal. I had a concussion, but it took me finding a doctor who was like, I said, I know my brain, and it's not working how it normally to get them to do the testing that they needed.
Yes.
But not everybody is strong enough to stand, sometimes they get intimidated by medical professionals, veterinarian or human. That's where my friend just went on this
Yeah.
ride of, I'm going to believe everything this doctor said because
Yeah.
he's a doctor.
In the book, I give people a big pep talk.
Mm-hmm.
People don't ask for second opinions, even though their veterinarian has tried 4 or 5 different things and their dog still isn't better.
Mm-hmm.
And when I ask why not get a second opinion, almost always it's, I don't want to hurt my veterinarian's feelings.
Mhm.
And it's like, what's more important, your dog's health or your veterinarian's feelings?
Exactly.
So, a veterinarian who is a good veterinarian should encourage second opinions.
And should encourage specialists. It was one of the
Yes.
things that
Yes.
the hut I worked at that I met you way 1,000 years
Yeah.
ago. One of the things I loved about the veterinarians that I worked for there was they said one of their beliefs was the duty to refer. And I remember them when I was a brand new RVT. I have a duty to refer. It's my duty to refer. If I don't know this, I have to refer, which is partly how, I knew all these specialists in the area was because we had specialists come into the hospital. We referred the vet dogs out to specialists because a general practitioner only learns so much.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
they're learning multiple species where a human
Right.
doctor learns only about the human body and a general practitioner for a human only knows so much.
That's right.
So to expect them to know everything is a lot. And for them to have the ego to think they know everything is also not okay.
Right.
And so they should be okay with, hey, let's go have this internal medicine specialist or
Right.
let's have this oncologist look at this. And then they can work together.
That's right.
I think that that's really important too.
Sure.
I think you have so much great educational information for people
Thank
and it's
you.
easy to read. It's not overwhelming. It's not too technical where people will get overwhelmed by it. Hopefully, people will enjoy that, all of your
And
writing.
people can find me on Substack. I post a lot of information about dog
Okay.
health there once a week. It's Speaking for Spot on Substack.
Oh, perfect. Well, is there anything else? I mean, we've shared so many great nuggets, I think, today, but is there anything else that maybe we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with the audience before we sign off?
Aren't we lucky to have dogs in our lives? And I can't imagine life without them. I really can't.
That's true.
And if at all possible, I think it's great for kids to be raised around animals, if it's at all possible.
Right. Yeah. What I love about what I do is that every single dog is unique as every single person. And
Yes.
so no matter what their breeds are, they all have their own little quirks and their personalities. And you can put 10 golden retrievers lined up and every single one of them will have some slight different personality. And
Right.
that's it's some major differences, but some just slight. And I just love that about animals.
I like to say that dogs know how to talk to us. We just need to learn how to listen.
Yes, but I work a lot on body language. I teach people a lot about body language with what I do.
Yes.
For sure. Well,
Yes.
thank you so much for being here.
My
We will
pleasure.
have all the links and everything and
Great.
available. So check out Dr. K's different two books. They're both available on Amazon, but you can, check them out, order them and share them with your family because the more we educate, the better it is for our dogs too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.